I've made even more Batarangs. These are prototypes marked 6 and 7. I was reading through the concept art book for the Batman film, and I really liked the way these Batarangs look, so I decided I was going to make some. The first thing I did was design the Batarang as a two-dimensional DXF file, which I then laser cut into some acrylic prototypes to make sure that I liked the sizing. When I was happy with that, I cut the Batarangs out of quarter-inch steel, and, well, I'll just let the visual speak for me at this point. Moving on to Batarang Mark 7, this one was intended to be an improvement upon my previous folding Batarangs. As you can see, this prototype looks pretty much identical as well. I sought to fix the issues I had with those, namely that they broke so damn easily due to only being epoxied onto the hinges rather than welded. Last time I tried to make my own hinges so that I could have my friend later weld them, but I failed in that aspect. I attempted the same thing, but this time using a die to form the proper bend. My plan was simple. Instead of having hinges be on the Batarangs, have the Batarangs be the hinges. I wanted to make a jig consisting of a hole with a tangent slot. There I would slide the steel with the hinge design into the slot and press it into the die so that it would form a curve around the hole. My first approach was to ask my acquaintances who knew how to use CNC machines to create the die for me. Then after they refused and thoroughly explained to me why it wouldn't work, I proceeded to not listen and go at it myself with a drill press and an angle grinder for over an hour. It's not the best die, as its many imperfections were reduced only by hand files, and I was working in a rush, but you know what? It worked. The key is to radius the sheets first, as well as keep your desired shaft diameter in the center so that it does not bend undesirably. Here's the catch. It worked, but it also didn't. I already knew that bending the Batarang wings would be far less straightforward, as they have an awkward shape to press, and the only appropriate side to do so from would be the point end. After trying numerous methods and failing all of them, I was just about ready to call it quits before realizing something. Between all that failure, I had laser cut more test hinges like before, but every attempt that came after the first also failed miserably. There were only 2 variations between the first attempts and the ones afterward. While making the first test hinges, I waited hours after laser cutting before bending it while I practically tried right away with the others. But that didn't sit right with me, as the laser cutter really shouldn't be heating the piece up enough to cause truly significant changes in mechanical properties. And even if it did, if anything, the heat should have made the metal easier to bend immediately after. The other was a more obvious one. Despite the fact that these were both sheets of 16-gauge steel purchased from Home Depot, they were still cut from different sheets, meaning there could be a difference in how hard to bend each individual sheet was. I was trying to figure out a way to determine such a thing until my friend very helpfully pointed out to me that there's literally a machine that does exactly that at my disposal. So I ran an HRC hardness factor test to determine exactly how hard each piece of metal was. And as expected, even with accounting margins for error, the 2 sheets differed greatly in their HRC factors across all tests. Afterward, I found another tool aside from the HRC tester which could test how hard a piece of metal is to bend. A hammer! For when I radiused the sheets again, I immediately noticed it was much easier, so honestly I barely needed to run all of that just to find out which one was harder to bend. Once I finally made one more successful hinge, I contacted my friend, who very kindly welded on the new hinge for me, and I went ahead and finished the rest.